Buongiorno. Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to SIPA Talks, the Siena Awards event dedicated to photojournalism and storytelling. Since I started working with National Geographic 10 years ago, every year I've been attending the annual photography seminar in Washington, D.C. Networking, meetings, workshops, and more than anything else, extremely inspiring lectures. It's an event incredible that inspired me for what we are doing now. When I proposed to Luca Venturi, founder and art director of Siena Awards, my dream to organize a full-day event of lectures by great photographers, he replied with his strong Tuscan accent, "Hey, tu sei matto? Are you crazy?" Yes, I am, but Luca is crazy as well. Never stop dreaming is our mantra. However, I was in need to team up with someone with a deep knowledge of photography who could give a captivating lecture on the art of storytelling and introduce the talented and legendary photographers who would take stage on this wonderful theater. Who better than Katie Moran? And here we are on this stage to lead the second edition of SIPA Talks, now one of the most important photography storytelling live events in Europe. Founding member of ILCP, the International League of Conservation Photographers. Formerly Deputy Director of Photography and first Senior Editor of Natural History Project at National Geographic magazine. Named 3 times Picture Editor of the Year. Those are just some facts, but they don't describe the strong impact that Katie had on wildlife and conservation photography. A veteran of the National Geographic, she has been producing projects about terrestrial and underwater ecosystem for the magazine since 1990. She was project manager for the Mega Transect, the epic trek across the Congo Basin by legendary photographer Nick Nichols and Dr. Mike Fay. 13 national parks have been created as a result of this expedition. Katie knows that every image has the power to raise awareness and to inspire change. As a photo editor for National Geographic, she had the privilege of curating some of the most breathtaking stories from around the world. Katie worked on the magazine and book project with Brian Skerry and Jasper Dost, later on stage, and Javier Aznar, George Steinmetz, and Steve Winter, just to name a few fellows that I see today with us. She has edited over 300 stories for the magazine, a lot. She is very demanding photo editor, as she set the bar very high, but provide guidance as well. It doesn't matter if you spend days in the cold or perched in a tree to take a picture. For Katie, a crappy picture is a crappy picture. I still remember my first proposal to Katie, a hippo eating a wild beast in the Mara River. She said, of course, no, this one is the picture. And I say, come on, it's a hippo eating a wildebeest, it's not usual. The photo was not good enough, of course. It was a crappy picture. I realized how high the bar is. And we are talking about single images. Can you imagine about stories, when you come about stories? Years later, I took an image and I immediately emailed her the first image of a black serval in the wild. Then the following year, I sent her a series of pictures of an extremely rare blonde zebra, the first photographed in the wild. Of course, this is luck, but they published them, and this was a little bit above the bar. Approved again and published. Knowing how demanding Katie is, I promised her another really rare subject, the pink panther. Sorry, Katie, I'm still on the hunt, but I think if Steve Winter didn't get it with one of his camera traps, it doesn't exist. National Geographic underwater photographer and film producer Brian Skerry told me, Katie was a true partner with photographers on every single story she edited. She obsessed about the stories, sometimes more than the photographer, and wrestled with every detail to get it perfect. She researched every component, made calls, and guided the photographer on how to make the work better. Often, this was a simple idea, something that was really easily remembered when you were in the field, and always resulted in better picture. When I met Steve Winter 10 years ago during my first seminar at National Geographic, I asked him who that woman was. She is Katie Moran, the greatest photo editor I ever worked with. If you will work with the magazine, she will be your best friend and your best support, and has been my guiding light on all my stories. With her experience and empathy, makes you a better photographer. Please welcome Katie Moran.
I'm still waiting for that Pink Panther, Steve. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back in Siena. As Sergio said, I recently retired as the Deputy Director of Photography at National Geographic. But before that, I was the lucky photo editor who primarily worked on the conservation stories. And in that role, my challenge was to find a way to balance the natural history photography that National Geographic is known for with the harder-edge conservation stories that we needed to tell. Our coverages led to the creation of the National Park System in Gabon, changed shipping lanes to protect endangered northern right whales, prompted a multi-year ban on hunting songbirds in Albania, and thanks to follow-up reporting by Sharon Geinup and Steve Winter, the closure of the Thai Tiger Temple. But what does it take to do these stories? I'm going to share some coverages by a diverse group of photographers, all employing different techniques to photograph these assignments. In addition to planning, research, and time, our photographers often go to great physical and technical lengths to ensure they'll get the photographs that they're after. But more than anything, it takes a determination to tell the story, whatever that might be. And here is what the photographers have to say about motivation.
Don't worry, I'm a professional.
Photography has the power to...
Good photography has the power.
The power to undo your assumptions about the world.
Change your perspective on life.
And surprise people with something that they had no idea existed.
Inspire, horrify.
Stop time for a moment.
It stops a bullet in midair.
Images are so powerful that they can change the course of people's lives. They can change the course of history.
Photography can change the world.
Never underestimate the power of a still frame.
How can we make the horror that we see in these pictures stop?
When people see those photographs, I hope that they are overcome with a sense of urgency.
I want them to ask and scream for change.
To see that, oh, that could be me, and make connections between people.
It's a universal language.
One little hammer.
A weapon against what's wrong out there.
You have to care. You really have to care. It sounds simple, but I even get emotional sometimes when I talk about it. You cannot do superior work if you're indifferent. How are you going to do that?
It's not the individual photograph, it's what you do with it and who you engage with it that makes it powerful.
While we live in a world where it's easy to say that people don't care anymore, it's been proven to me time and again that people do care.
How could you ever be done? No, you don't ever think you're done.
You just have to do it.
I must shoot these pictures now. These images have to be intimate. They have to be powerful.
We're not operating in a vacuum. Human beings, can't exist alone.
And I find that some little tiny beetle with bright green eyes is no less magnificent than a grizzly bear, and no less magnificent than me.
There's always one more picture, just one more.
It takes years of working.
Just wait a minute, one more.
Just to hone your vision.
Then I'll be done. No, I won't.
The moment you think you've got it, you're dead, I think.
It is an addiction to be in the presence of powerful human emotions, to see the incredible beauty and desperate circumstances that people are able to survive in, to see the heroic nature of humanity.
I photograph to understand.
In 2013, a team of photographers and writer David Quammen were assigned to produce a single-topic issue on the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Quammen describes Yellowstone as a complex of mostly untamed landscapes and wildlife within the lower 48 states, yet one that is buffered by 21st century America. Highways, towns, parking lots, malls, sprawling suburbs, and Starbucks. And while the team was up to the challenge of covering the issues, the real concern was how to document the iconic wildlife and show the ecosystem connectivity in ways that most visitors to the park would never experience. More than 4 million visitors a year go through the park, yet it's estimated that only 10% ever leave the roads that bisect it. And given that the park and surrounding wilderness is home to cougars, wolves, and grizzly bears, it would give any visitor pause to leave the safety of their car. And most of these species are on the endangered species list anyway, which makes getting close to them illegal. So with special permits from the National Park Service, we quickly realized that camera traps were going to offer the greatest potential for wildlife photography. Now, Drew Rush made this image of a cougar by setting a camera trap behind an elk rack. He left it there for 6 months. And the magic of this triptych by photographer Charlie Hamilton is that it demonstrates exactly that ecosystem connectivity we were after. One camera trap captured 2 predators and 1 prey species, all utilizing the same trail in the Grand Teton National Park. Wolves are notoriously smart, and they offer the greatest challenges to camera trapping. We spent months devising disguises for traps that we hoped we could set up on a wolf den, and they were immediately discovered and destroyed in one night. So, with one exception, the team had to tackle the wolves like everyone else, along the road and with occasional serendipity. Here, the Molly Pack feast on a bison that drowned in the Yellowstone River. And Mr. Blue was that one exception, and one time only. Photographer Ronan Donovan set the trap on the riverbank, hoping that at the lean time of year, even a wolf might ignore the camera trap. But Mr. Blue posed once, and then again only came back during the dead of night. Ronan believes that this is actually natural selection at work. Wolves in the lower 48 have been relentlessly persecuted, and only the cautious survive. Meanwhile, nothing was going to scare off a hungry grizzly bear. So we knew we could photograph mountain lions with camera traps. We quickly realized that wolves would be practically impossible. But what about grizzly bears? Sharing a landscape with grizzly bears is both awe-inspiring and fear-inducing. Viewing them from a distance makes bear sense, but it doesn't make for great photos. When Charlie came across a deer carcass literally at the edge of his backyard, he thought, oh, I'm going to try a camera trap. This is going to be so easy. This was Charlie's first grizzly bear encounter, and this was the last frame made by this camera trap before the bear destroyed it. Needless to say, the team quickly developed a deep respect for and a very healthy fear of bears. So the trick to deploying the camera traps was finding the best and safest locations for the gear and the photographers. What we see here is what's referred to as a boneyard. And if an animal dies, like the computer, if the animal dies near the road, Park Service employees have to move that carcass to a safe place so predators can feast away from the traffic. Now, this is not a place you ever want to come across on a backcountry hike. This image was made in the Grand Teton National Park by Charlie in their boneyard, and months later, this same bear was photographed over 50 miles away in Yellowstone's boneyard. So we had a real sort of roadkill connoisseur. Nick Nichols made this camera trap photo in the front yard of the park's bear biologist, Carrie Gunther. Carrie suspected that there might be bears moving through the yard, but this was the proof that he needed. Carrie quickly embraced our goal of trying to capture bears in a new way, and he told us about a theory that he'd been sitting on for over 10 years. He had once found a radio collar from one of his tracked bears deep in a pool in the forest, and he had suspected for all that time that the bears were using this pond as what he came to call the bear bathtub. His curiosity was the key to securing the permits to set up the cameras, and this is what we got. Over the course of the coverage, Ronan made 9 trips to the bathtub to check on the cameras. The bears had played with them every time, from simply licking the lens to total destruction, and this was the image that we actually published in the magazine. Photographer Laurent Balesta pushes the limits on technology, exploration, and our understanding of what lies below the thin edge of the ocean's surface. This photograph took Laurent and his team 4 years and 3,000 dive hours to make. The goal? To photograph the massive schools of grouper that spawn in the Fakarava atoll and the sharks that gather to feed on them. The challenge? Those groupers only spawn once a year under the full moon in June or July, and only for about 30 minutes. So how to photograph, let alone make compelling images in that time frame? Working with his colleagues, Laurent created a dive protocol that would allow him to spend 24 hours at a depth of 65 feet, while limiting the amount of time it takes to decompress from 20 hours to just 6, the first dive of its kind. This feat required intense engineering, a dedicated dive team, and huge courage. Most of all, it was a way to achieve a long-held dream of observing marine life uninterrupted. And here's a look at how they did it. Along with his team, Laurent devised a semicircular rig onto which he affixed a set of strobes and 1 continuous beam light. His dive partner swam above him, operating the bar and orienting it depending on what Balesta wanted to photograph. I tried my best to show the beauty, the choreography of these predation behaviors. Gore is attractive, but it's time to entice people with the harmony of wildlife, says Balesta. Wildlife is without mercy, but wildlife is also without hate. Birds of Paradise was the ultimate passion project for photographer Tim Lehman. The goal? To photograph all 39 species of these birds. A scientist by heart, Tim, like many of his colleagues, believes that the combination of science and photography is an impactful conservation tool. And along the way, Tim and his colleague, Ed Scholes, achieved several milestones. First, they are the only people to have ever seen all 39 species of these incredible birds. But perhaps more impressive than seeing all of the birds, photography and video were the tools that helped them make discoveries about the birds of paradise. This species, Parodia, has a clearing on the forest floor where the males dance to impress the females. Initially, Tim and Ed showed the dance from the ground level and made this frame. Next, they decided to photograph the dance from the female's perspective, from the branches above the dance floor, basically a balcony. They discovered that the females aren't reacting to the dance, lovely as it is, but to a white patch on the male's head that appears only when he wags around. See it in a second. So we have female choice at work and proof that completely upended the long-held belief that the females were reacting to the fancy footwork. So this was a scientific discovery based on the photography. I didn't choose big cats. Big cats chose me, says photographer Steve Winter. Steve's love affair with big cats began with a bird. He was in the mountains of Guatemala in the mid-90s, photographing the quetzal, when he was woken one night by a black jaguar nosing around outside his cabin. I was scared to death, he recalls. Despite his initial trepidation, the stage was set for what would become a career dedicated to the world's big cats, starting, ironically enough, with a story about jaguars. 8 stories and 20-plus years later, he has become a master of combining artistic vision with camera traps and showing us big cats in an entirely new way. Leaving behind the jungles of South America, Steve next proposed a story on the rarely seen snow leopard. This is where he really honed his camera trapping skills. And on to 3 coverages focusing on tigers. For these stories, Steve engaged in what he called the Zen and the art of camera trapping. You have to have an incredible amount of patience and ultimately faith that after all those days and weeks you spend learning where the animal goes, understanding behavior, you are going to get your shot. And on to the now iconic Hollywood cougar, P-22. This image captivated P-22's LA neighbors and led to the installation of the largest highway crossing in the world. Thanks to Steve's photograph, P-22 became the ultimate celebrity influencer. And leopards, like P-22, very comfortable in urban settings. And full circle back to jaguars, where he was finally able to both see them in the wild and utilize camera traps. But Steve's most recent story for National Geographic was on the plight of captive tigers within the US. It is estimated that there were more captive tigers in the States than there are left in the wild. For once, he tackled a big cat story that didn't require camera traps, just perseverance and a thick coat. And this is what happened when he spent time with Langley, a 300-pound Thai liger.
I just keep my back to him.
This story, with reporting by Steve's partner Sharon Geinup, was instrumental in finally securing passage of the Big Cat Public Safety Act, which now prohibits people from keeping tigers, lions, and other big cat species as pets. And even more importantly, it bans the cub petting industry. So again, photography can really impact conservation. So let's end with Joel Sartori. For years, Joel was our go-to guy for conservation and natural history stories. He used a classic photojournalism approach to his assignments. However, when his wife Kathy was diagnosed with cancer, he realized that he was going to be at home for a very long time. Looking for ways to stay busy when the kids were at school, Joel started to experiment with taking a studio approach, working with wildlife. And Joel is not the first photographer to do this. Jim Balog did it in the 80s, and more recently, David Lichtschwager. But I like Joel's philosophical approach to this style of photography. He believes that by isolating species on backgrounds, making eye contact, that he gives them, all creatures, from the most attractive to the least, equal stature. And from what started as a way to stay busy, a passion was sparked. This is Photo Arc. So that makes it look really easy, but this is what takes place behind the scenes.
Ready?
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Not bashful bird. Not a bashful bird at all. Ow! Ooh, crap. Oh man, this is one of those birds that's gonna try to blind me.
Gosh, I was asking about your lens.
Yeah, okay, here we go. This is gonna be one of those things where I'm back here. Em, can you distract him in the back of the box?
Raja. Raja.
Oh,
Yikes, that's scary.
Ow! God dang it. Man, can he bite? Can he bite? Holy cow.
Yeah, look at how big and bad he is.
Oh my God. Dang.
Here we go, Red.
This is like a $6,000 camera. Doesn't he know that?
Hey, 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 hey.
Ow! God dang it. Do you like this bird, Jan?
Yes, he's fantastic. Raja. Raja. Look at his beautiful eyelashes. Yes, he is glorious.
Got it, got it, got it. Nice. Okay. All right, done. Thank God. Time for lunch.
Joel says, I want to turn up the volume on the conservation threats confronting all species. I hope these photographs grab viewers and make them care. Someday we will have nothing left except animals preserved in formaldehyde and these images. Joel has now photographed over 14,000 species for the photo arc. He says he's as excited to photograph the assassin bug that he'll get tomorrow as he is by that red jungle fowl he hopes to get in a month. Truly all creatures great and small, according to Joel. So, that's how our photographers go about doing their jobs, and thank you.